Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 11th of December 2023. I have a multiple sclerosis nurse meeting pretty soon, and so this will be delayed a little bit, or I'm going to have to cut it short. I'm going to see how it goes. Anyway, let's get on. So we'll go to the where we normally start, the general stuff, Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. We can see that there is a big uptick in losses along a number of these categories. So 1,030 personnel lost is huge for the Russians. We have seen the numbers up and around there and even higher than there for the last, I don't know, good few weeks, as I think there is, of course, lots of activity on the front line, but I think that's mostly down to the Russians attacking. So that's from Russian offensive actions and the Ukrainians defending their positions using a lot of drones, and some artillery and whatnot to take out these Russian troops. There's a lot of drone on troop activity that I've seen on the socials. There's many videos being uploaded of drones, just countless numbers of drones taking out groups of people, individuals, and I'm going to play you some drone footage in terms of what you can hear in a second, and it must be absolutely unnerving for the Russian, or for either side. 19 tanks and 31 armored personnel vehicles are huge losses in those categories, and we're back up to high figures there. 19 tanks is a massive loss for the Russians, so they've lost a lot there. And if indeed these aren't so accurate, you can take off 30% of these, literally take off a third, and these are still bad numbers, right? If you don't agree that 31 APVs have been lost, how about 20? If they're overinflating it by that much, by a full third, these are still problematic figures. 6 artillery systems, interesting because that's low. Why is it that there's a much lower number of artillery pieces being lost and yet high in the others, so tanks and APVs? And that's probably reflective of the Russians attacking. So high numbers of personnel, tanks and APVs probably indicate they've been attacking in a number of places. Now we know that Avdiivka is still pretty hot. We know that they're attacking a lot in Bakhmut, and they are probably committing columns of vehicles to these attacks, and we've heard and seen footage of columns and large numbers of vehicles still being destroyed, and that might not include the destruction of artillery pieces in that. So that could be an explanation of the difference there. 18 drones. We'll talk about drones from last night. That doesn't necessarily mean last night, from the night before. 13 vehicles and fuel tanks and 6 pieces of special equipment, fairly high on the special equipment front there. We'll see what Andrew Perpetua has in his list of equipment that has found its way to social media in terms of videos of them getting blown up and destroyed. And here we have almost parity, although the parity comes in the loss of boats from the probably from the Dnipro River here. So quite a few boats lost there from drone drop bombs, and a scalpel there. I had to look into what that is. So that will be a loss for the Ukrainians around the Krinky area, no doubt. So they have had delivered a whole bunch of boats, new boats, so that you're probably seeing those in action. And unfortunately, they are going to be quite targetable for the Russians. One piece of artillery, an M109, older T-64 tank. Not very much in terms of a high-level equipment being lost otherwise. And when you compare to the Russian list, you've got, aside from an excavator, a couple of tanks, you've got a lot of IFVs and an APC there. So that probably indicates some offensive maneuvers from the Russians that kind of aligns with what we're seeing in the general staff daily figures as well. So I guess higher value stuff for the Russians, although it's slightly worrying that the Ukrainians have lost 5 boats there. Of course, we can't tell with any of those figures whether they were definitely lost yesterday, but Andrew Perpetua does try to only include recent ones on these lists, I'm fairly sure. So if they're older, he either says it might be older, or doesn't include it at all. Right, now we're going to go to see if some of these figures can be justified. So in the Avdiivka direction, says War Translated, Russian servicemen says their group of 70 has 14 people remaining alive. They're meant to be closing the cauldron as a gift for Putin's inauguration. So actually there's a few bits of information to garner from this video. I'm going to read it to you because I think it is worthy. So new direction, I forgot to make a video of this trip, says a Russian soldier. How long we're here? The other says, I'll say 8 days. 7 for me. Anyway, Avdiivka direction, closing the cauldron. So that's closing that neck on the western side of Avdiivka. We came here, 70 people. Now we have 14 effing left. So they are really combat ineffective by any stretch. He continues, all the rest are dead and wounded. When we came, this tree line was living. So that was only 7 days ago, as he said. So 70 down to 14. I wonder what the percentages are there. I could try and work that in my head. It's not great. When we came, this tree line was living. We were being destroyed, simply destroyed. Dead were here yesterday. They were removed, so they are removing some of their dead troops in places. I can't show, but the front line is there. The Ukrainians are there. He indicates Ukrainians with an expletive or a pejorative term, properly entrenched with concrete fire points. Interesting. So I wonder whether this is around the southeast, where there's some forestry there, near the restaurant and around the industrial zone to the southeast of Avdiivka, where we know that the Ukrainians are dug in pretty well, and they do have some fortifications there. So that would make sense. 500 meters away, we were pulled back as we couldn't complete the task. By the way, how the F are we meant to be stormtroopers? In our group remaining, we have a mobilized Dan, myself, and the Spanish. Behind the railway are the Ukrainians. We fight them all day long. We were shelled with grads. You can see the landscape. Further are the dead. They're all over the place. So obviously still a lot of dead that haven't been picked up. We can't even pull them out. So there you go. Today we're meant to be withdrawn. No idea how it's going to work. Some shrapnel on his today we're meant to be withdrawn. No idea how it's going to work. Some shrapnel on his nose. He's just come across his mate there who has shrapnel on his nose. That's it. Stanislav Sergeyevich became the senior. Also, Dan is senior. We survived thanks to a developed self-preservation instinct, but you can't even imagine our tasks. Hopefully, we will live. F, I think I was spotted. And he then sort of goes into the bunker, I think, there. Ends with, all right, take care. So there he is in a bunker. That gives you an indication that things aren't going well, that they're really tough for the Russians, although the Ukrainians are under a lot of pressure, and they have been pushed back in many places. It comes at quite a cost for the Russians. And this idea that, and I don't know if it comes from another part of the video, translation from War Translated, I couldn't see it in there, but there is this idea that they needed to get Avdiivka for Putin's inauguration. It needs to be this gift for the 17th, which is a bit of a reflection of it being a political decision to take Avdiivka rather than a strategic tactical decision, or it could be both. But there seems to be a lot of store put in this idea that they need to have a big win before Putin's presidential success so that he can laud that to the masses. I don't know if I showed this one. Yes, I think it is the same one. It's a book, but the video, it shows the book being destroyed by HIMARS. It's the idea that HIMARS are still being used to take out individual pieces of kit. They're being used as artillery, which is kind of what their design criterion was. But at the beginning of the war, they were being used to hit higher value targets, troop accumulations and depots and whatnot. Now they're being used to just pick off, not just to pick off. It's really important to pick off particularly air defense systems here, but pieces of equipment, and you're seeing that thorough degradation of the Russian equipment behind the lines. Here we have a Russian Grad that, and this is Russians filming one of their own Grad. I don't know what happened to it, but it reminds me of, I don't know if anyone's played or watched the TV version of The Last of Us. But it reminds me of the face of those. They're not quite zombies, whatever they are. Just, I don't know. You'd have to see that to see if I'm talking nonsense or not. But that Grad has fundamentally malfunctioned or been hit big time. So that's what can happen to a Grad. Now, this is a smartphone of a Russian soldier that was captured, and he's recording not anything visual, but these are the sounds of drones in I presume the Krinky area, but it might not be. But just this gives you a sense of what people have to put up with, and how I think how psychologically demanding, how psychologically damaging being on a front line must be for many reasons. But just the sounds of drones must give you the heebie-jeebies the whole time. Unfortunately, it's not quite loud enough. Oh yeah, it is. Sorry, I hadn't turned my speakers up. Yeah, that is loud. So there's 2 minutes of that going on, and just that sound, and imagine looking up and not being able to see it. That's quite a blue sky there, so you've got a better chance, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you need a contrast on the white of the clouds. But just imagine looking around the whole time, thinking, is it going to hit me? I've seen footage of soldiers, split. You're being in a group, and then hearing the sound of the drone, and then all splitting in different directions, which is much more sensible. I've seen ones where they all run in the same direction. Of course, the drone can then hit them and take them all out still. But, turning, looking around, firing blindly in the air, just the panic that you would get from this. Drones, yeah. Right. And I didn't want to show this. So, yes. Anyway. You see what's left of us. I'm all torn up. How many people died here? A Russian soldier films a result of an assault in which his unit was sent near Avdiivka. He was probably the only one left from the entire unit. Now, this is another bit of footage, again from Avdiivka area, showing basically his entire unit dead on the floor. And it's just carnage. Although, as I keep saying, the Russians are on the offensive and they do have momentum and wind behind their sails, there is a huge cost being exacted for the Russians in having the successes that they are. And as I was saying yesterday to Rick, that if they're getting attrited at such a fundamental level, then it could end up just being a Pyrrhic victory where they leave themselves much, much weaker in the long run and open to be counterattacked come spring. Moving to distance strikes now, the Ukrainian Air Force say Russia launched 18 Shahed drones and 8 ballistic missiles overnight, and apparently all of them were shot down. So that's really good. If 8 ballistic missiles were shot down, they are harder to shoot down. And I think they were shot at Kyiv, so it goes to show how well defended Kyiv is at the moment, although that's not the biggest wave that you can imagine. It does seem to be a little bit of a ramp up There was some debris and fallen missiles in Kiev as a result of them being shot down. That's a problem. That even though, and it happens with Shaheeds as well, even though you can intercept them, what goes up must come down. So quite often these missiles then still come down and cause quite a lot of problem. The aftermath of a Russian attack on Kiev in the early morning of December the 11th, the missiles hit the Donetsky district, injuring 4 people and damaging private buildings. So that was a success for the Ukrainian air defense. Is this Russia just ramping up a little bit, seeing how much they would need to overcome the Ukrainian air defenses in Kiev? Or is it, this is all they've got? Like, why are Russia not sending big old waves of missiles now? Because as I said the other day, this winter now, if they want to have an effect on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure and the heating, those centralized heating pieces of infrastructure, then they need to be overcoming defenses and sending these saturation attacks now. So why are they not doing it now? What is the reason Russia has not yet sent these massive waves that are expected, given that they must have been stockpiling huge numbers of missiles for the last few months because they've not fired missiles? So so there are different theories, like they just can't produce those missiles and they haven't stockpiled them. I don't know. I mean, I think they probably have, although there were some claims the other day from Western officials that they don't have the 1,000 missiles that is claimed. So they might have something to do with it. They might not have as many missiles as some people think. They might not have the launching capabilities, as we talked about with the Black Sea Fleet, in having their loading capabilities in Sevastopol, but they're now in Novorossiysk, so they can't get their ships and submarines loaded with cruise missiles. I don't know, or they are doing that on purpose. So this is part of the plan. That they haven't sent these huge waves because, for some strategic reason that's known to them. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on why Russia hasn't done that yet. There's been a big explosion in, some people say Yevpatoria, some people say Feodosia. Those are on different sides of Crimea. Nonetheless, somewhere in Crimea there's a big fire as a result of an explosion, some kind of hit. Also an explosion, big explosion heard in Berdyansk, and multiple reports of blasts on Berdyansk. So the Ukrainians seem to be picking up with a few strikes today and arguably last night. So moving on to other bits and pieces. In Russia, since the beginning of December, the 12th plane has made an unplanned landing. Another incident took place today in Yakutia with the Superjet SSJ-100 of the Irero airline. And indeed, yet another emergency landing for a plane in Russia. And this one was carrying radioactive material, which is slightly worrying. A plane with radioactive cargo on board crash landed at Vnukovo airport. According to Baza, the UT airline was flying from Khanty-Mansisk to Moscow on the night of December the 11th. So this is 2 planes, actually. So these are 2 separate incidences. There are 104 passengers and 5 crew members on board. During the landing, the plane sounded an emergency alarm due to malfunction of landing gear, etc., etc. So, goodness me, this is happening super often at the moment. Right, something that is in the Radio Free Europe article from, and this is from the 31st of October 2022. So this is over a year ago. But there's just a little bit of information in here which I found really interesting. So when I was talking to Rick, the Ukrainian, last night, I was talking about what other competitive advantages that the Ukrainians do have over the Russians. And there are some. And one of the ones I was talking about was in terms of intelligence gathering and intelligence analysis. So the Ukrainians have access to the best satellite imagery in the world, right? And the Russians don't. And the Ukrainians are able to get time-sensitive data just huge amounts of it. And I think they will continue having that advantage over the Russians, who are less able to do so. And this is from over a year ago. So on a typical flight day, so talking about drones, they'll fly their camera-equipped drone over Russian positions, bring it back to their lines, and return to their base to upload their flight cameras data into their computers. The team then begins the painstaking process of identifying the location of Russian vehicles and bases. In order to find Russia's often well-camouflaged equipment in their footage, they first use artificial intelligence to identify square objects. They then pore over the footage for hours, examining it closely for signs of targets. Even small discrepancies may point to a Russian tank lurking undercover, such as whether the leaves in a certain area are dry while all the others are fresh. After that, it's up to their command and artillery units to identify which targets to hit. Once the target is selected, the operators will make a flight to confirm the target is still there. The double confirmation is necessary to avoid wasting precious artillery shells from Ukraine's limited supply, the operator said, and so on and so forth. It's just quite incredible. Talk about Starlink, the importance of Starlink. We'll return to him a little later. The cycle of field work and analysis can be exhausting. For a week, we'll sleep just 2 hours. Lego said we'll fly till 7 p.m., then go to the base and then analyze 3,500 photos from the flights. I mean, it's incredible, the sheer volume of information they are looking at. And indeed, there was somewhere else in this article. I'm sure, no, it's not millions. I'll find it possibly through what Trent Telenko says, because he talks about this article. He's saying that, here we go. We're talking 3,500 photos a day for a very small, and this is what he said back in March, for a very small 5-kilometer section of the Ukrainian front. For the scale of the Ukrainian daily photo intel effort, now multiply that by 500 platoons across the whole front. That is 1,750,000 photos of the Russian armed forces frontline positions every day. Photos that are first-level analysis by artificial intelligence looking for square or man-made objects or day-to-day differences to alert photo analysts to examine more closely. The 1.75 million photos a day are the photo intelligence grist of the Ukrainian GUR mill to grind out Russian battle damage assessment and casualties with. That granular level of photo intel detail is the grist for the GUR mill that grinds out well and exceedingly fine. This AFU photo intel efforts is my TTP basis for trusting Ukrainian General Staff announcements of Russian casualties. And remember that the Radio Free Europe article is from October the 22nd. 5 months is a lot of time to improve an artificial intelligence. Just ask the Twitter chat GPT mavens. There are lots of other implications that fall out from this AFU photo intel at retail levels. First, the demolition of the delusions of superiority that many Western ground force officers have over AFU. When was the last time they went to a battalion level FTX and had 9 quadcopter intelligence teams on their table of organization deliver 31,500 AIQ rated photos of the opposing forces' field positions to them to support their operations? Ukraine's army has been fighting that kind of war for the last 5 months minimum. IOW all the time. The last 5 Russian casualty bars on the graph below. I have a month-old numerical Ukrainian photo intel TTP basis to trust AFU General Staff casualty numbers. What basis do the Ukrainian casualty number doubters have? So again, it's this idea that there are good reasons to support the numbers coming from the General Staff analysis. So I think that's a useful article that can tell us quite a bit. Right. I am now going to have a bit of a rant, but before I have a rant, I have to go on to a multiple sclerosis meeting and talk about my issues. I'll be back soon. Right, I'm back, and it turns out I need to do more exercise. That's the outcome of that. Who knew? Anyway, I'm going to have my ranty section here, and it is on people that I often talk about, almost obsess about, you might think. Why is this important? This is important because, and I know there are so many of you out there that love Elon Musk and think he's wonderful. He's super important, right? So he gives a megaphone and a platform and a megaphone to all sorts of voices. But he's given a show to Tucker Carlson, and then he's shouting about his show, and obviously wants it to be as successful as possible. So he's shouting about what the shows are about and agreeing with all the content, but the content is basically flat out lies. So Tucker Carlson has lied about Gonzalo Lira, done a whole episode on this basically Russian shill, and then produced these lies, and then Elon Musk has said, this is terrible, everyone should know about this, and projects all that disinformation to the world. And then you wonder why that there is polling out again today to show that 48% of Americans are against extra. They think that the US is giving Ukraine too much assistance. Why do you think that? Like, where are you getting your knowledge from? Oh, it's people like this. So this is really important, and it does need to be debunked. Now, what's happened is that Elon Musk, as his free speech absolutist, took out moderators from Twitter or X so that they wouldn't be seen to moderate what people are saying, so people can say anything. So that's made disinformation. The EU's done this report that shows that Twitter is the worst of all the social media platforms for disinformation. But not only that, he's then platforming some of this disinformation. But what he has done to try and control disinformation is to produce something called community notes. Now, community notes is where the community gets together and sort of debunks debunks dodgy claims. So here we've got Elon Musk. Again, it's the same thing that I showed you the other day, but there's a bit more to it now. An American YouTuber has been imprisoned for 5 years. He's actually Chilean, but for 5 years in Ukraine, and allegedly tortured for making videos. Well, that is just wrong. He's not been tortured, and he wasn't in prison for making videos. This is not okay. Yes, it is okay because he broke the law, and there are lots of laws that have been listed about this. So what happened is originally Tucker Carlson released all this episode about that, and then you had community notes on Tucker Carlson's claims saying Lira was not in prison for 5 years. He was arrested in 2022. It's not shown on X though. If you look at this, we'll come to this in a second because this is really, really dodgy. Not shown on X. Some of these things being said, but anyway, let me get into this. So people like here, Mario Norfal saying if this was Russia or China, it would be all over the media. So the idea that Gonzalo Lira has been imprisoned for, and as Tucker Carlson says, for criticizing Zelensky. And that's what he's been in prison for, that he's been tortured, and this is an independent journalist, etc., etc. But then, people are calling this out under the community notes. So Mario Norfal's claims then gets community noted with, Lira has violated Article 4362 of Ukraine's criminal code. He publicly denied the Bucha massacre and other Russia attacks against civilians, blaming Ukraine. So he blamed Ukraine for Bucha and for genocidal, war crimes and whatnot, rather than Russia. He exposed the location of Western journalists and Ukrainian soldiers, which is illegal, including their faces, among other crimes. And then this is given 5 references, but Elon Musk says to the original what Mario Norfal here says true. In other words, Tucker Carlson gives disinformation. Elon Musk platforms that and says, "Is this really what's going on?" And then someone adds to, "Yeah, this is nuts, isn't it?" And then Elon Musk says, "True," and it's not true. It's just not true. And then Elon Musk is himself community noted. Now, here's where it gets funky. First of all, lots of people have been piling in on Elon Musk. So Jake Bro, Jay in Kiev, lots of people, Jonathan Fink, Dead District, all the people that I've either directly interviewed or feature as my sources. Louise Mensch, who is a former Conservative member of Parliament in the UK, who's very pro-Ukraine. Republicans against Trump here. Why do you amplify blatant lies by notorious Kremlin propagandists? Do you bother to read your own community notes? And so on and so forth. And he said there is a community note explaining this. He's not been in prison for making videos, etc., etc. But then when you have Scott Ritter, right, who is a paid up Kremlin shill, saying thanks Elon for bringing attention to this front burner issue, it's imperative that Gonzo is released and returned to American custody, where he can engage his constitutionally guaranteed free speech activities free of the intrusions of the Ukrainian SBU. This is, after all, I mean, this is pure Russian propaganda. This is, after all, a black and white case of free speech suppression. No, it's not. So much so that the Biden White House has highlighted his case and classified Gonzo as unjustly detained. Wait, well, no, they haven't. But they are sure to, because they care so much about free speech. They haven't done that because he's broken the law, literally. It's not like the State Department funds and organises the work of the Ukrainian Centre for Countering Disinformation, which has targeted your pal Tucker Carlson and your new pal me. Your new pal Scott Ritter being pally with Elon Musk here. US government would never countenance the existence of a hit list against Americans accused of Ukraine by saying and writing things they disagree with, except they do. I mean, it's tough. I know. I mean, whatever. And he goes on and on. Whatever. Scott Ritter, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, here's where you see the double standards. So a true journalist who has been reporting on the war has actually been imprisoned by Russia. So Ivan Gershkovich from the Wall Street Journal is still in prison in Russia with his appeals turned down. What has frickin' Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson and Scott Ritter said about him? The square root of nothing. Square root of naff all. And that tells you all you need to know. They are not talking about what Russia is doing bad. And I talked about this yesterday. Where's this framing coming from? It's the idea that we're happy to criticize Ukraine, but we will not criticize Russia. Why did Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk not criticize Russia? Well, we talked about this yesterday because Elon Musk needs natural resources from Russia, and Tucker Carlson is involved financially with Russia, first and foremost through his father and his lobbying for Viktor Orban's government. Just follow the money. Right. Then it gets weirder still. So, you know, and we see all of this stuff from Elon Musk getting involved and blah, blah, blah. And then it turns out that Elon Musk has deleted the community notes attached to his claims or his tweets. So he's a free speech absolutist saying we're not going to moderate, but we will have community notes to take out disinformation. But when he gives the disinformation, he deletes the community notes. Is that free speech absolutism? Well, you're just banging on about free speech and you've deleted people's freedom of speech that you have enabled on your website to counter disinformation because it's going against what you say. You are a free speech dictator. You are not. You are a propaganda dictator. So Elliot Higgins of Bellingcat, you know, OSINT extraordinaire, the community notes on Musk's original tweet and a reply have both now been removed. It says everything about Musk and his platform. When Elon Musk was claiming that the community notes system was being gamed when people were putting the truth about Gonzalo Lira on Tucker Carlson's original tweet, and he was like, this is all being gamed. No, it's not being gamed. It's been referenced, and that's the truth. So, as the Dead District says here, you know, Elon is a pathetic small person. Igor Kievsky says he's already deleted all the community notes. So you can pause this and look at all the community notes attached to what Elon Musk has said and Tucker Carlson to put the corrective in place. And, you know, now deleted on Elon Musk's tweet. So I think this is worthy of me getting annoyed with, because this is not helping the situation at all. And this feeds back. This is a narrative that then gets fed back into the general population. And when the general population have you know, this opinion to a large degree, so 48% of Americans believe that the US is giving too much assistance to Ukraine. Where's that coming from? And if that's coming from this disinformation, then what you have is Musk and his platform inspiring this thought landscape in the US that might then affect policy going forward. So when the US government think, well, should we do this? Let's look at what the population think in the US. Oh, that's really unpopular. Let's not do that. If they do that at all, I don't know if they reference public opinion with their international foreign policy decisions at all. But that you could have a situation where things don't happen, decisions don't get made on the basis of the US population thinking one thing when that has been informed or disinformed by essentially useful idiots for the Russian Kremlin. And this is a situation where Russia is winning the information war. And I'm sorry, you might love Elon Musk, but what you need to do is cut the link between you and any other human being that because you align with them on certain beliefs, on certain political beliefs or whatever. Don't think that everything they say is correct, and also don't treat them like a religious entity, such that if anyone says anything against them, it becomes blasphemy. And you can't say anything against them. And I'm going to shut you off from saying anything against them, because that inoculates you from hearing the truth and from ever being able to see the bad side of these particular people, whoever they are. You need to disabuse yourselves from the notion that any other human being, their identity can merge with yours. Because what happens is, if you really like, say, Elon Musk or any other human being, so much so, Taylor Swift, if you're such a Taylor Swift fan, that if Taylor Swift was to do something truly bad, then if I insult Taylor Swift, I am by extension insulting you, because her identity and your identity are merged, so that a criticism of her is a criticism of you. And if you feel criticized, you will entrench and you will shoot down the messenger of that criticism. So if I was to criticize Taylor Swift or Elon Musk or Tucker Carlson, if you are finding yourself getting really defensive right now and getting really angry with me, that's because your identity has merged with the people I'm criticizing. And so my criticisms end up landing on you and you feel defensive. So you're not treating that rationally, you're treating it psychologically. You're treating the substance of the criticism psychologically rather than emotionally, rather than rationally, because you think you are being attacked. Don't do that, because it inoculates that person from being attacked. Just be really careful. And I will continue to criticize these people when it matters, because they're so freaking important. I would not be on Twitter if it wasn't absolutely essential for the work I do. There is no other platform that can do what Twitter does for the aggregation of information on a global scale. There is no other platform. So it would be easy for me to tell you that I can go and do this on Threads or Blue Sky or these other alternatives that are popping up, but none of them enable me to get the information I can get on a daily basis with the efficiency I can do it. So unfortunately, I have to stay on Twitter, and I could try and convince myself that I'm doing this to try and fight it from within, etc., etc. There is an element of that, but actually, there's just no alternative for me. But dagnammit, these people are doing damage. They're doing damage directly to Ukraine, and I find it morally abhorrent. Anyway, that's my rant over. Take care, and I'll speak to you in the next video.